Okay, friends. So this starts us with our next important hemolytic anemia, that is sickle cell anemia. That is sickle cell. First point, sickle cell anemia, you very well know inheritance pattern, autosomal recessive. Autosomal recessive, you know this. Next, what is the problem in sickle cell anemia? It is a point mutation. It is a point mutation in sixth codon in sixth codon of beta chain, in the sixth codon of beta chain, as a result of which glutamic acid as a result glutamic acid is replaced by valine. As a result, glutamic acid is replaced by valine, leading to the formation of hemoglobin S, leading to the formation of HbS. We knew this even from class 11th-12th. What is important here is, put a line on the side. Put a line on the side. In the sixth codon of beta chain, if glutamic acid is replaced by lysine, it is called as HbC. This is important. Please put a double star. In HbS, glutamic acid is replaced by valine, whereas in HbC, glutamic acid is replaced by lysine. Next point. Let us come back to HbS. Even if glutamic acid is replaced by valine, leading to the formation of HbS, what is the problem? The problem is hemoglobin S. It polymerizes on deoxygenation. See, it is the job of RBCs to take oxygen from lungs and give it to the peripheral tissue, but HbS polymerizes on deoxygenation. Initially this polymerization is reversible. Initially it is reversible, but repeated cycles of oxygenation and deoxygenation. RBC is getting oxygenated in lungs, deoxygenated in peripheral tissue. Repeated cycles of oxygenation and deoxygenation lead to the formation of ISCs, lead to the formation of irreversible sickle cells, that is ISCs, lead to the formation of irreversible sickle cells. Next point, even if these irreversible sickle cells have formed, what is the problem? So clinical features. The first clinical feature is vaso-occlusive crisis. These sickle-shaped RBCs, they go and get lodged in the blood vessels, leading to vaso-occlusive crisis. Where all is this vaso-occlusion seen? If it is getting vaso-occluded in the cerebral vessels, it is associated with stroke. In retinal vessels, it is associated with retinopathy. Vaso-occlusive crisis, cerebral vessels, stroke, vaso-occlusion leading to stroke, retinal vessels, retinopathy. Next, in the bones, it is associated with dactylitis. Dactylitis means bone pain. Dactylitis of bones of hands and feet. The smaller bones, that is dactylitis of the bones of hands and feet. Next, it is also associated with priapism. Answer, priapism. It is painful erection. painful erection. You very well know that erection occurs because of vaso-occlusion of the penile vessels. Here it is erection occurs because of venous engorgement. Here, because of vaso-occlusion, it is painful in nature, painful erection. And lastly, if there is vaso-occlusion of the conjunctival vessels, conjunctiva, that is of the eye, conjunctival vessels, it is associated with the classical comma sign. That is, the conjunctival vessel looks like a comma. It looks like a comma sign, vaso-occlusive crisis. Next, the next clinical feature. So the first clinical feature was vaso-occlusion. The next clinical feature is splenic changes. Next is splenic changes. First point, the first change or the initial change seen in spleen is splenic enlargement. Initial change seen in spleen is splenic enlargement. Because of vaso-occlusion, blood is entering into the spleen, but it is not able to move out, leading to splenic enlargement. Occurring because of sequestration of blood. Occurring because of sequestration of blood in the spleen. Splenic enlargement, which is followed by multiple splenic infarcts, Think of it yourself. If there is vaso-occlusion, spleen is an end arterial circulation. We saw that in general path. It is an end arterial circulation. So if this vessel is supplying this area of the spleen, if there is vaso-occlusion here, this area of the spleen becomes ischemic, followed by multiple splenic infarcts, in turn leading to autosplenectomy. So the first word which should come to your mind when somebody talks of splenic changes associated with sickle cell anemia is autosplenectomy. Next point, before I go further, a recap from general pathology. Multiple splenic infarcts. So which type of irreversible cell injury is this? Which were the two types of irreversible cell injury? Necrosis, apoptosis. This is necrosis. Which pattern of necrosis? Ischemia is associated with coagulative necrosis. Ischemia, it is associated with coagulative necrosis. It is coagulative necrosis. And which type of infarct is it? We saw this in hemodynamics. What are the two types of infarct? Red infarct, white infarct. Red infarct was associated with hemorrhage, ill-defined. White infarct was end arterial circulation, kidney and spleen. This is a type of white infarct. I am not getting into the details of this. Please have a look at this. Coagulative necrosis from the patterns of necrosis in the chapter cell injury. White infarct, the two types, red infarction and white infarction from hemodynamics. I will repeat this though, I'll put a line on the side and write it for you here. Infarcts are of two types, red infarct and white infarct. Red infarct is associated with hemorrhage, so it is ill-defined in nature, versus white infarct, which is associated with end arterial circulation. That is, there is no other blood vessel supplying that particular organ. End arterial circulation, and is seen in kidney and spleen. It is well defined in nature. It is a white, well-defined infarct versus red infarct, which is seen in lungs, intestines, and ovaries. Lungs, intestines, and ovaries. Not concerned. Not concerned. Spleen is associated with white infarct. This was what we wrote here. This was what we wrote here. So, splenic changes. Sickle cell anemia is associated with autosplenectomy. Next point. So, I can safely ask you this. Is splenectomy, which is the most common site of hemolysis in sickle cell anemia? Spleen. So, is splenectomy indicated in sickle cell anemia? No. So, next point, splenectomy. Splenectomy is not indicated. Splenectomy is not indicated in sickle cell anemia. Why do you want to charge the patient for something disease will do free of cost? So splenectomy is not indicated in sickle cell anemia. This is the second clinical feature, that is splenic changes. Splenic changes. Next, the next clinical feature is spleen is a reticuloendothelial organ. It is associated with formation of antibodies. Splenectomy in turn increases the risk of infections. So sickle cell anemia, it is associated with autosplenectomy. As a result, increased risk of infections, especially by encapsulated organisms. Especially by encapsulated organisms, that is strep pneumoniae, and Haemophilus influenzae. Strep pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae. Increased risk of infections. Next point. So I can safely say most common cause of osteomyelitis. Itis is inflammation. Osteomyelitis, inflammation of the bone. Most common cause of osteomyelitis in general population, that is in all of us, the ones who are not suffering from sickle cell anemia, in general population, is Staph aureus versus in sickle cell anemia, where it is salmonella. So the third clinical feature, increased risk of infections. And lastly, sickle cell anemia, it is also associated with aplastic crisis. Aplastic crisis. What all have we seen till now? 4 clinical features. Vaso-occlusion, that is vaso-occlusive crisis. Splenic changes, autosplenectomy, increased risk of infections, and lastly, aplastic crisis. Aplastic crisis, this occurs because of infection of erythroid precursors. Where are the erythroid precursors present? Erythroid precursors, they are present in bone marrow. Infection of erythroid precursors in bone marrow. By which organism or which viral infection is associated with aplastic crisis? By parvovirus B19. Aplastic crisis. So these are the clinical features associated with sickle cell anemia. Next point. This is mainly for the second years, just these 2-3 lines. Another point that is asked is crisis in sickle cell anemia. Crisis in sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia, it is associated with 3 main crises. First is vaso-occlusive crisis. We have already seen this. Vaso-occlusive crisis. Next is aplastic crisis. And the last is put a star, acute chest syndrome. Remember, increased risk of infections, acute chest syndrome, which is associated with fever, cough, chest pain, and pulmonary infiltrates. So crisis in sickle cell anemia. There are 3 main crises. Vaso-occlusive crisis associated with vaso-occlusion. Aplastic crisis, parvovirus B19 infection, erythroid precursors in bone marrow. And lastly, acute chest syndrome, which is associated with fever, cough, chest pain, and pulmonary infiltrates. This is sickle cell anemia, the pathogenesis and the clinical features. Next point. This gets us to the factors. Factors affecting sickling. Factors affecting the formation of sickle-shaped RBCs. That is, factors affecting sickling. I can divide these factors into increased sickling, into increasing the factors which increase the sickling versus those which reduce it, that is, which decrease sickling. Factors increasing versus reducing the sickling. Very commonsensical. You know that sickle-shaped RBCs or sickling is associated with deoxygenation. When HbS deoxygenates, it polymerizes. So when is deoxygenation going to occur? When is the RBC going to release its oxygen? When will it deoxygenate? In cases of reduced pH, deoxygenation for any cause, inflammation, dehydration, next dehydration. We very well know that sickle-shaped RBCs, they are dehydrated in nature. Dehydration. Remember, this was the first thing that we saw in basic concepts of RBCs. MCHC is increased. Increase in MCHC. Mean cell hemoglobin concentration, increased MCHC, and increased transit time of RBCs. Through microcirculation. Increased transit time. If the transit time, the time taken by RBCs to pass through the microcirculation, if the transit time is increased, this in turn increases sickling, because more oxygen would be given to the site. It will be associated with deoxygenation. This increased transit time, this is seen in inflammation. Versus the causes or the factors which reduce sickling is increased HbF, increased levels of hemoglobin F. You very well know that HbF has more affinity for oxygen. If in the patient HbF is high, deoxygenation reduces. HbF has more affinity for oxygen, so deoxygenation reduces, preventing sickling. Increased HbF. Next, reoxygenation. Next, reoxygenation, either because the inflammation subsided or the circulation got better. Reoxygenation. These are the factors. These are the factors which affect sickling. Next point. This gets us to the tests for sickle cell anemia. First point. Let us start with screening tests. Let us start with screening tests for HBS. Screening tests for sickle cell anemia. The first screening test is the sickling test. First is sickling test. In sickling test, sodium metabisulfite, this is a reducing agent. Sodium metabisulfite is added to peripheral blood. Sodium metabisulfite is a reducing agent. This causes deoxygenation of RBCs. If the RBC has gotten deoxygenated, it will lead to the formation of irreversible sickle cells. So the first screening test is the sickling test. Now, before we go further, what was the inheritance pattern of sickle cell anemia? Both the hemoglobinopathies, sickle cell anemia as well as thalassemia, they were autosomal recessive. So autosomal recessive will manifest when both the alleles are abnormal. You know this from genetics. Sickle cell can present as trait also. Trait means one gene is normal, the other is abnormal. One allele is normal, the other is abnormal. You know autosomal recessive, it can be homozygous or heterozygous. If it is homozygous, it is sickle cell anemia. If it is heterozygous, it is sickle cell trait. So sickling test can detect sickle cell anemia but not sickle cell trait. So what I wanted to impress upon is the screening test of choice. For hemoglobinopathies. It does not matter whether it is sickle cell anemia or thalassemia. Let it be any hemoglobinopathy. The screening test of choice is hemoglobin electrophoresis. The screening test of choice for hemoglobinopathies is hemoglobin electrophoresis versus the investigation of choice, IOC, investigation of choice for hemoglobinopathies is HPLC. That is high performance liquid chromatography. HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography. HPLC. What is the difference between the two? Hemoglobin electrophoresis. This is a qualitative test. That is, this will just tell you whether a hemoglobin is present or absent. It is a qualitative test. Versus HPLC, which tells you the exact percentages of all the hemoglobins. That is, this is a quantitative test. So screening test of choice for hemoglobinopathies, hemoglobin electrophoresis, versus investigation of choice, HPLC. Next point. Let us now see hemoglobin electrophoresis in much more detail. An extremely important topic, you have to know this. So this starts us with hemoglobin electrophoresis. Hemoglobin electrophoresis. Now, before I start per se with hemoglobin electrophoresis, let us have a look at normal adult hemoglobins. Normal adult hemoglobins. This is physio, you know this. There are three normal adult hemoglobins, which are HbA, HbA2 and HbF. HbA, HbA2, HbA. HbA is alpha 2 beta 2. HbA2 is alpha 2 delta 2 versus HbF, which is alpha 2 gamma 2. Next point, normal percentages. Normal percentages. HbA, it is approximately 95 to 96%. Now, while writing this, I always mind, because it depends upon the sensitivity of the machine. If the machine is highly specific or highly sensitive, it will detect HbA1c also, which is approximately 5 to 6%. So HbA will become 85 to 90%. So it depends upon the machine. HbF is less than 1%. So 0 to 1, 0 to 2, less than 1, less than 2, I'm okay with anything. What you cannot change is HbA2. Normal HbA2, put a double star, is 2 to 3.5%. This cannot be altered. What is the significance of this? Or let me rephrase this as main indication of hemoglobin electrophoresis. Main indication of hemoglobin electrophoresis. As a pathologist, suppose I get 10 samples for hemoglobin electrophoresis every day. Out of those 10, 9 samples will come for the same indication. What? We want to screen the mother. Does the female need to be pregnant always? No, it can be at any point, boyfriend, girlfriend, engagement, pre-marriage. What is the end point? End of first trimester. So we need to screen the mother for which disease? For hemoglobinopathy, which is much more common. Sickle cell anemia, thalassemia. So the main indication of hemoglobin electrophoresis is screening of females. Screening of females. Please note I have written the word female, not pregnant. Pregnancy is not a must. Screening of females. Maximum by the end of first trimester. Maximum by the end of first trimester. Screening of females. Screening of females for which disease? For thalassemia. Minor या major? You're screening the lady for minor या major? Thalassemia minor. बच्चे, if it was major, the girl will know since childhood that I am a case of thal major, because repeated blood transfusions are needed in thalassemia major. Each word is important. Main indication of hemoglobin electrophoresis, screening of females for thal minor. Next point, again put a double star. In thalassemia minor, HbA2 is increased. What was the normal HbA2? 2 to 3.5%. So in thalassemia minor, HbA2 is more than 3.5%. HbA2 is more than 3.5%. But what is the upper cutoff? Even 50% is more than 3.5. What is the upper cutoff? But less than 8%. But less than 8%. This is hemoglobin electrophoresis, the theory part. Next. So this gets us to hemoglobin electrophoresis. What do we see in this? Hemoglobin electrophoresis. In hemoglobin electrophoresis, we run the sample on agarose gel plate. Next point, hemoglobin is negatively charged. So it migrates from cathode to anode. Hemoglobin is negatively charged. We run the sample on agarose gel plate. Hemoglobin is negatively charged, so it migrates from negative to positive, cathode to anode. Next, so let us assume this is the agarose gel plate. Just a sec. Agarose gel plate with the point of application. This is where the sample was put. That is, this is the point of application. Whenever hemoglobin electrophoresis is performed, normal is always there. There is no hemoglobin electrophoresis without normal. What we see normally is a thick band of HbA farthest from the point of origin, followed by HbF, which is close to HbA, and HbA2, which is closest to the point of application. This is normal. Next, sickle cell. Next, let us first start with thalassemia minor. HbA2, low, normal, high. We just saw in thalassemia minor, HbA2 increased. Slightly increased or massively increased? Slightly increased. HbA2 more than 3.5% but less than 8%. Slightly elevated. HbF, normal. HbA, low, normal, high? Reduced. See, total has to be 100%. So depending upon how much HbA2 increased, HbA will be reduced. But if HbA from 95 becomes 92%, it will not be visible to the naked eye. What we are able to see is slightly elevated HbA2. Next, thalassemia major. Before we go further, what do we mean by minor, major? Both thalassemia and sickle cell anemia is autosomal recessive inheritance. Thalassemia minor means it is heterozygous. One allele is normal, the other is abnormal, heterozygous, versus thal major, which is homozygous. Both the alleles are abnormal. Thal major, HbA2 normal. Now the predominant hemoglobin is HbF versus HbA, which is markedly reduced. So the predominant hemoglobin of thal major, HbF. Next, sickle cell trait, HbS trait, sickle cell trait. HbA2 normal. Now we see a fourth band of HbS. Between HbA2 and HbF. HbF slightly increased. HbA reduced. To the extent to which HbS and HbF was elevated, HbA will be reduced, because again total has to be 100%. Now my question to you is, in sickle cell trait, HbF was slightly increased. Is this good for the patient or bad for the patient? HbF is increased. This is good for the patient. Why? Because HbF has a higher affinity for oxygen. If HbF is high, deoxygenation or polymerization of HbS will be reduced. So elevated HbF is good for the patient. And last is sickle cell anemia. Last is sickle cell anemia. Same funda, even sickle cell is autosomal recessive. So sickle cell trait means it is heterozygous. One allele is normal, the other is abnormal. Versus sickle cell anemia, which means it is homozygous, both the alleles are abnormal. Sickle cell anemia, HbA2 normal. Now the predominant hemoglobin is HbS. Predominant HbS. HbF normal to slightly increased versus HbA, which is markedly reduced. This is hemoglobin electrophoresis. This slide is important. Hemoglobin electrophoresis. All you need to know is, normally from the point of application, we have HbA2, HbS, HbF and HbA. This is hemoglobin electrophoresis. So last point, let's see it as a question. What is the motility? What is the motility of HbS compared to HbA? Motility of HbS compared to HbA. Your options are reduced, same, increased, या depends on concentration of HbS. Depends on concentration of HbS. Answer बच्चे 1 2 3 4. In my live classes, sometimes I get the answer as depends on concentration. No. See, this was hemoglobin electrophoresis. We saw different amounts of hemoglobin, but they go to the same site. Like HbA, all HbAs are here irrespective of the concentration. So option 4, depends on concentration, is false. Hemoglobin electrophoresis is size and charge dependent. It is size and charge dependent. Size and charge dependent, not concentration dependent. Not concentration dependent. So option 4 is wrong. Next. From the point of application, first is HbS followed by HbA. So what is the motility? What is the motility of HbS compared to HbA? Which goes faster? HbA is moving faster. HbS moves slower. So motility of HbS compared to HbA is reduced. That is, the answer is 1. The answer is 1. It is reduced. Done. This takes care of our next hemolytic anemia, that is sickle cell anemia.